Hey guys, Janine here with Dan Tessier. It's episode 9 of Transitioning to Life After Sports. So we're really excited to have Dan here with us today. I'm going to read his bio and we're going to get right into it. For those of you that are new to the series, the reason we are doing these is to help those suffering in silence. There are a lot of conversations that go on behind closed doors for athletes at the professional level or competitive athletes up and coming in the younger years that do have that struggle when the sport is done. So we want to create a community that can support them with our own stories for those that are suffering in silence. So a little bit about Dan. Dan Tessier played major junior hockey in the OHL, where he was named team captain for the Ottawa 67s. I'm sure a lot of those that are local here watching are familiar with Dan. And he established his success with top honors as a face-off specialist, being awarded the OHL Top Faceoff Award 3 years in a row through 1998 to 2000. He was also awarded the CHL Top Faceoff Award in 1999. In the 98-99 season, he had an 84-point season while leading the 67s to a Memorial Cup victory. In the years that followed, Dan played at the professional level in the East Coast Hockey League, as well as playing overseas in the Holland Super League. That would have been fun.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
He also played in the AHL and multiple European leagues, making a name for himself internationally. So in 2002, he opened his own hockey instruction school, running training camps for youth during the summer. In 2017, he started coaching girls hockey, establishing his teams as true competitors in the league. His second year coaching brought medals in nearly every tournament entered, woohoo, and an OWHA Provincial Championship. Over his years of coaching, Dan has proven to know how to get the best out of his team, and his tireless dedication shows his love of sport and bring it to the kids. So awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess let's just let's jump right in. Okay. Ottawa 67s. Tell me about your headspace when you were in, obviously that was kind of the first of your professional career, so that was probably a very exciting time for you.
Yeah, it was exciting. Growing up as a kid in Ottawa and getting a chance to play in your hometown was something that's exciting. You know, I had a lot of offers to go to school.
Yeah.
And I was rated in the first 2 rounds of the OHL. And, you know, I decided when it came time that I had an offer with Brian Kilray and stuff. And, you know, you're 15 at the time, and you're not gonna refuse playing in your hometown and something you grew up watching. So it was a lot of fun.
So talk about that journey with the 67s. Leadership role, captain. I think I saw an A on your shirt and then a C. Were you assistant and a captain? Because I saw a couple different photos.
Yeah, so my first year when I was in the league, you know, you're a rookie and stuff like that. So Alan McCauley was our captain at the time, and you learned a lot from him. One of the guys who worked the hardest in practice and off ice and stuff like that. You didn't see that very often from a veteran that would give it all. And then I said I wanted to be like that one day, you know, try to have that leadership role and see what I can do. And I had a great rookie season. I think I led the rookies in scoring that year. And the year after that, Killer gave me the honor of being an assistant captain, and it just kept moving from
just
there.
like that.
Yeah.
Good for you. So this is interesting, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Dan is the many roles that he did have as a captain, and letting people know that just because you have an A or a C on your shirt, it doesn't mean that you're omit from having that mindset blocks or mental or emotional fitness. What was that like for you? I'm sure, given that you're a natural born leader, you enjoyed the role. But what were maybe some of the struggles that come with being in a leadership role?
Well, it's, you know, you love to have that responsibility and stuff like that, and people look up to you for sure. But where I didn't realize it, being captain for the, assistant captain, then captain with the 67s is, I had 4 years to play there, so everyone knew who I was.
Got it.
And then when I went to play semi-pro, and 1 year I played in Fresno, California, where I attended the team, and the coach loved me after training camp and said, you know what, you're going to lead our team, and gave me the captaincy. So that didn't sit well with a lot of guys that have been there playing in the East Coast for years. And I thought that was stressful. The hardest time for me as a captain and as a leader is, you know, pretty much the guys probably saying, well, who the heck is this guy coming in, and he's a leader of a team. So.
And you were probably walking into a team that players had been there for years.
Yeah, and that's the hardest, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, like when you're hanging out with your teammates and doing stuff after hours and stuff like that, I felt kind of there's a bit of jealousy, which is fine. But, you know, where I said to myself after a while and I had to get mentally prepared is, you know, I'm going to show by example. And, you know, I led the team in scoring that year too. So, you know, that kind of helped.
Like that.
But it's not always about that. It's about leadership and talking to, you know, the players. But, you know, there's a lot of older guys, and I'm coming in, I'm 19, and there's guys on my team that were 25, 26, 30. Like,
Okay, so this is I'm very curious about this because I'm sure it's going to happen to some athletes that have great ability mentally. So what did you do to mentally prepare yourself to be able to take on that pressure? I mean, we heard you say you focused on, I love that, lead by action, not, you don't walk in a room and run your mouth. You go out and just, okay, fine, you want to talk about me? I'm going to show you how it's done on the ice, right? So how did you deal with that behind closed doors?
Yeah, it was very hard because, I'd come home and be disappointed, like, if we lost and stuff. But sometimes after a while, you start saying stuff in the dressing room, and some of the guys are thinking like, you're only 21 years old and I'm 30, like who what I mean? And it's going through the NHL now. Like if you look at it, is Jamie Benn last night, for an example. Everything was about Jamie Benn coming back, their captain, their leader. And all they talked about was him doing nothing during the game. So they're putting that whole focus on that game on his shoulders, which is normally fine as a captain, but then he's mentally has to go home and see all this and look at like, oh my God, I didn't really do anything for my team, so what kind of leader was I? So then you question your hockey career, you question your ability of being a captain, and that's a lot tougher than anybody else can say.
Yeah, which is an interesting perspective because a lot of us would think, if you're in that leadership role, that everything's hunky-dory, you're the captain, you're kind of leading things, but I think it's important that people are aware of that and how other leaders can feel. Now, when you transitioned to life after sports, what was that like for you? And so this is a fully loaded question with a couple parts. When you were getting closer to retirement, were you thinking of leaving? Like, did you physically, a lot of athletes you hear, you're kind of in that, should I leave? Should I not leave? Or did you have any injuries? Or what was it that kind of propelled that decision to leave?
I had some major injuries. I broke my knee my last year junior. I tore my MCL 6 times over the course of the years. So,
ouch.
So I was pretty banged up there for a while. And then when I decided to go to Europe, you only play 40-some games a season, so your body gets so much better. And all the injuries, you don't feel them as much because you're not playing 80-game schedule plus playoffs plus travel plus this. So transitioning one summer, it was right before 2009. I think it was the summer of 2008. And I was going back to play in England for my, I didn't think it was my last year. But knowing I applied for the police service, and all my friends told me it's going to take 3 to 4 years. Okay. So I figured I had 3-4 more years to play hockey. And throughout that summer, I trained. I got ready for the season. I did all my testing. In January, the police called me, flew home from England to do all my testing, and then went back. By January, they offered me a contract. So
you kind of had it was a quick... You had something lined up, which is interesting because a couple of the conversations you guys have seen in other episodes, there's the athlete that has the abrupt stop. They're injured and everything comes kind of crashing down. Or some jump into that next phase quite quickly, so they don't really feel the effects of transitioning to life after sports because they go into an arena that's similar to being part of a team, so probably with the police force, I'm sure that. So when did it hit you?
Well, it hit me after I stopped playing. So it hit me in my last game in England. We went to the championship. April 3rd was the last game of the championship. And April 13th, I started with the police force. So I didn't have much time to
You didn't have time to process
everything. And, we had a baby at the time. And, it was a chance for my wife to come home and work on her career as well. And she had more trouble than I did because she knew, oh, my God, okay, now it's going to be reality. And when we did come home... It took me a full year to 2 years to kind of settle in. Like I was playing men's league 3-4 times a week just because I needed it. Yeah. And I still need it. I still play today. And it's one of those transitions where I can't let it go. Some of the guys quit.
And that I think is harder on people. Well, I know there is science that proves when you abruptly stopped a sport because you're used to training such long hours, the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins that is all going through you. So, that's what I think when I do hear these conversations with other athletes, I make sure if you are thinking of leaving a sport, just make sure you move your body. If you don't know what to do next, that's fine, but move your body because that's where your headspace really gets affected if you're not training. So that's good. And you're still skating?
Yeah, I'm still skating. Now it's once a week more, but I coach the kids and I coach a junior team as well. So I'm pretty busy. And for me, that's my stress reliever. Like if I didn't have that where it was just stopped, I think mentally there'd be other issues. But I think that's a big thing is, keep going in something you love because that's all I've ever done my whole life.
And that's amazing. And let's talk about your role as a coach. Yeah. What are you seeing from a mindset perspective with younger athletes? But what are you seeing on the coaching side of things?
Well, there's a lot of it. Like, we've been through it, right? So if you talk to any pro athlete that's been through the whole process about, yeah, there's politics, there's this, there's that. But I mean, at the end is you're putting your kid on the ice to have fun, meet new people, stay out of trouble. And listen, in your head, you have to say, as a parent, is they're not going anywhere. And, that's hard to say and realize it. I do it with my own kids is if they go somewhere, perfect on them. But if you have the mindset that's bigger than your kids and you want them to succeed the most, because you want it more than them, then there's something wrong. That's when you become, a parent that, now you're going to question the coach on this. You're going to start doing things like that when you probably have no clue on what's going on behind the bench and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of kids that I coach. The mental health part of it is coming from home. A lot of it. And then they're bringing it to the rink. Do you hear that,
parents? This is really important because we do see it a lot, and I see it when I'm at the rink with the kids, but the pressure that some of us put on our children, and I'm not pointing fingers, but just let's make it aware so parents that have kids that are in competitive sports. I mean, the kids feel the pressure, right, as is when they're in the arena or whatever sport they're in. So what are you seeing? So in the locker room, they're getting it more from home, but how are athletes, especially after going through COVID, how are your athletes? Are you seeing a need for more work around mindset?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing is getting them into, talking to somebody other than their family members and someone that kind of went through the same pages as them or went through it way back. And now, it's not as changed. It's how you do it and come to the rink every day and prepare yourself. Like girls that I coach right now that are junior that are trying to go for scholarships, they have so much pressure that, it's coming from home as well. Like, you got to work harder, you got to do this. But it's not actually that. It's coming to the room and realizing how hard you have to work on the ice.
Yeah.
And I had, for an example, I had Cornell University, Doug Dureau, who's assistant coach for Team Canada. And he came and watched my practices to see some of the girls. He didn't care about the games.
Of course.
He wanted to see their commitment on the ice and practice and their work ethic.
Ooh, I love that.
Me too. I loved it. That's the first coach I've seen do that. And I was like, wow, he wants good habits.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's
some good attitudes.
Yeah, and there's some girls that come on the ice and it's just like, oh, I'm just going to skate because it's another practice. But it's not like that.
Well, and it's funny, when I was having some conversations with some other coaches and athletes. You also, for those of you that are looking for a scholarship or anything, you never know what teams are looking for or what their missing pieces, right? You don't always have to be the flashiest, loudest player on the ice, but they want consistency. They want great attitudes. They want someone who's coachable, who's willing to learn, who's willing to put in the effort day in and day out that makes the team as a whole better, right? Yeah. So that's amazing that he did that.
Yeah, and you learned a lot about coaching in my career, and I was always wondering, like, I was most likely a top 6 player wherever I played, and I was wondering, okay, why didn't I get drafted when I was top 10 scoring the OHL? Like, I remember going to Montreal's camp, and Réjean Hull was like, if you were 2 inches taller, you'd be a first-round pick. Well, at the time as a kid, I didn't want to hear that.
No.
Like, at the time as a kid, you're going to take the best players you can. But then over the course of my career, I realized that, I have to beat out someone like, let's say, Crosby, who's going to sign a contract for 20 years. He's a top 6 forward.
Yeah.
So what parents need to understand, too, in hockey is there's role players, right? Your third, fourth liners that are going to grind and do those little things that the top 6 won't.
Yeah.
Those are the players that are going to make the NHL a lot quicker than anybody else. And I had to realize that a long time when I was playing in the American League. I scored 2 goals and 1 assist, and we won 3-2 in overtime. And Kevin Lowe from the Edmonton Oilers, Jeff Ward was my coach. He was a Calgary coach. Told me, says, you're getting sent down to the East Coast tomorrow. And I'm like, I just had the game of my life, like in the American League.
How was that mentally
and
to get that?
He said it's just because they didn't have money invested in me. I was a walk-on, basically, that made the team. But they had to play all the first-rounders to expose them more because I was playing too much.
Got it.
So that's when I decided to go to Europe.
Interesting.
And I said, Europe, I'm safe there. I can concentrate on playing in one spot, not have to worry flying. My bag's being packed today?
Yeah.
Am I staying? Am I
leaving?
That's
tough
not a
place
family
to be.
life.
No, for sure.
I realized it pretty quick, and a lot of players said, you realized it pretty early in your career. It's because I was tired of it.
Yeah.
And mentally, it was just like not there. Like I could have went maybe another 3-4 years in the American League and maybe get that opportunity that I would play in the NHL. So I decided to go to Europe pretty quick.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that speaks volumes. So I'm curious, outside of the arena, just as someone growing up, did you have strong leadership in everything? Because obviously, I mean, people that kind of I was captain of a lot of my sports teams too, and different things. But was that ingrained in you as a young kid, or did you just develop this yourself?
I developed it with the 67s. Like mostly is, when I was growing up as a kid, I would talk. Obviously, I'm outgoing, but
we can talk.
We can talk. I'm outgoing, but when the cameras hit you, And when you're first time in the OHL and all these cameras are there because you're a hometown kid, I had to learn pretty quick how to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you became not shy and stuff like that. And what I do a lot with the coaching now is, you know, I'll tell one of the girls to get up and pick someone who was the MVP of the game, you thought, but not a friend. Pick something that they did out in the game. So public speaking is very, very good for them because some of them are really shy and won't talk.
Yeah.
So as a coach, that's your role. That's your job, is try to make sure that whenever hockey's finished, that's maybe something they learned that you were teaching them.
I love that. I love that. So. Such great advice. It's something that I talk about too when I'm coaching athletes. You know, what else are you interested in? Obviously, any athlete wants to be the best in their sport, and you know, it's our identity. But one thing that what did Carrie Joseph say? It's what you do. It's not who you are. Mm-hmm. But as athletes, we identify with that role, right? And we think it's who we are. So making sure that athletes are aware, like, this is what you do. It's not who you are. There's other parts. So I love that these athletes have you as a coach, steering them in the right direction. So they're very lucky to have you. Any final thoughts for any viewers watching or any athletes that are suffering in silence that you think could help them transition a little bit more smoothly? Yeah,
like, you know what, talk about it. You know, I went through my stuff too for a long time. Like, you know, if you talk about the old days with, you know, painkillers and stuff like that was easy to get when we were playing. There was a table full of Vioxx or whatever you needed for, you know, pain. And back then it was just like free for all. Like, there was guys on my team that would drink like 5 Red Bulls before a period. And it was just like, oh my God. Like, there was no control. And now talk to your kids, you know, about everything, because they're going to open up a bit more. And for athletes like myself, go talk to someone, talk to a psychologist and someone like that. That's something I never wanted to do. But I do now, and it's helped me through my career with policing and after playing hockey, because it put a big toll on my life.
Absolutely.
And, you know, policing's not an easy job either. You see a lot of stuff, and you know, once you talk about it instead of bringing it home, that's one thing I tried never to bring home. Never want to affect the family and do that kind of stuff. But I'm glad I'm talking about it more and trying to get myself better. Yeah, and I believe it's how we can help our future athletes be more of a well-rounded human being, right? Just because it's not, I mean, we love what they do. But, well, it was a pleasure having you. You've heard it from one of Ottawa's best, Dan Tessier. I will be posting this on all my other social media platforms as well as my website, so feel free to share it when it's up there. But we really appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure any other athletes that do get to see this video, they will be grateful for your coaching and your mentorship. So thank you for being here. Thanks for having me. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.